The vastness of space stretched before them, endless and unforgiving. On the bridge of the Eclipse, Captain Michael Alden stood with his hands clasped behind his back, his weathered face illuminated by the glow of distant stars. The Althean corridor lay before them, a stretch of space that marked the boundary between human alliance territory and the expanding Hizora Empire. Any sign of movement? Alden asked, his voice steady despite the tension evident in his shoulders. Zara Tan, his intelligence officer, looked up from her console with a slight frown. Her dark eyes reflected the scrolling data before her. Nothing conclusive, Captain, but there are unusual energy fluctuations that match Hizora warp signatures from our last intelligence report. The Eclipse was a modest vessel by military standards, a reconnaissance ship carrying a crew of only 15. Their mission was simple on paper: monitor Hizora expansion and report back to the Human Alliance. But intelligence had suggested that the Hizora Empire was preparing for something big, something that could threaten humanity's fragile position in the galaxy. Alden nodded slowly. Keep scanning. I want to know the moment anything changes. He moved to the viewport, staring out at the stars. The ship felt impossibly small out here, isolated from the rest of humanity. Yet Alden knew their position was strategically vital. If the Hizora were planning a major offensive, the Eclipse could provide crucial early warning. Captain, Zara called out, her voice suddenly tense. I'm picking up something. Alden turned. Show me. The main screen flickered to life, displaying a tactical overlay of their position. Several red dots had appeared, moving in formation toward the Eclipse's position. Hizora patrol vessels, Zara confirmed. 5 of them, light cruiser class. They shouldn't be this far into the corridor, Alden muttered. Tactical analysis? They outgun us significantly, Captain, replied Lieutenant Costa from the weapons station. Each vessel carries twice our firepower, and their shields are designed to withstand much more punishment than ours. The bridge fell silent as the implications sank in. The Eclipse was built for stealth and reconnaissance, not direct confrontation with a superior force. They've altered course, Zara reported. They're moving to intercept us. Alden's jaw tightened. They've spotted us. We should retreat, Captain, suggested Lieutenant Commander Rivera, the ship's executive officer. We're not equipped to engage 5 Hizora cruisers. But Alden remained silent, studying the tactical display with narrow eyes. The Hizora ships were moving with confidence, clearly intending to eliminate the lone human vessel before it could alert the Alliance to their presence in the corridor. Captain, Rivera prest. Alden's expression hardened. If we run, they'll pursue. And if they catch us, they'll destroy us and continue with whatever they're planning unhindered. What are you suggesting, sir? Zara asked, her voice quiet. A hint of a smile touched Alden's lips. They think we're defenseless. Let's show them how wrong they are. He turned to face his bridge crew. Prepare countermeasures. All hands to battle stations. Alarm klaxons blared throughout the ship as the crew rushed to their combat positions. The Hizora vessels continued their approach, apparently unconcerned about the threat posed by a single human reconnaissance ship. They would soon learn their mistake. They don't know what we're capable of, Alden said softly, almost to himself. They have no idea that this lone human ship will be the beginning of their nightmare. The Hizora patrol ships moved with precision, their sleek hulls gleaming in the starlight. On the bridge of the lead vessel, Captain Serkath watched the approaching human ship with disdain. A single reconnaissance vessel, he remarked to his second-in-command. They send one ship to spy on the might of the Hizora Empire. Should we not simply bypass it? Asked his subordinate. Our mission is to secure the corridor for the main fleet. Serkath's facial tentacles twitched with amusement. And leave an observer to report our movements? No, we will eliminate this nuisance quickly and continue our mission. He leaned forward in his command chair. All vessels, prepare to engage the human ship. Standard elimination pattern. On the Eclipse, Alden watched the Hizora ships form a pincer formation. They're confident, he noted. They have reason to be, Zara replied grimly. Our conventional weapons aren't enough to penetrate their shields. Then we won't use conventional methods. Alden turned to his communications officer. Open a channel to Artemis. A moment later, a calm female voice filled the bridge. Captain Alden, how may I assist? Unlike the embodied AIs common on larger Alliance vessels, Artemis existed purely in the Eclipse's computer systems, a sophisticated tactical intelligence designed to coordinate electronic warfare operations. Artemis, are the EMP traps ready for deployment? Affirmative, Captain. All electromagnetic pulse devices are armed and ready for deployment. May I note that the probability of successfully disabling all 5 Hizora vessels is approximately 47.3%. I'm aware of the odds, Alden replied. Deploy the traps on my mark. The Hizora ships continued their approach, weapons charged. They expected a brief, one-sided battle, if it could even be called a battle. They're within optimal range, Zara announced. Alden nodded. Artemis, deploy EMP traps. All hands brace for maneuver. The Eclipse suddenly accelerated, releasing a cluster of small, seemingly innocuous devices into space. The Hizora ships, detecting the movement, opened fire, but the Eclipse had already changed course, evading the initial barrage. Then the traps activated. Powerful electromagnetic pulses ripped through space, striking the Hizora vessels. Despite their advanced shielding, the pulses penetrated their defenses, causing cascading system failures throughout their ships. On the lead Hizora vessel, Serkath was thrown from his chair as the lights flickered and died. Warning alarms shrieked before going silent as systems failed one after another. What is happening? He demanded, pulling himself back to his feet. Our systems are failing, his second reported, frantically working at a console that was now dead. We've lost communications with the other ships. For the Hizora, who relied heavily on their neural implants and hive mind network to coordinate during battle, the loss of communication was catastrophic. Each ship was suddenly isolated, unable to maintain their coordinated attack pattern. Alden didn't waste the opportunity. Target their weapons systems. Precise strikes only. The Eclipse, seemingly insignificant moments before, now darted between the disoriented Hizora vessels, firing precisely at exposed weapon ports and sensor arrays. 2 of the smaller Hizora ships collided in the confusion, their navigation systems compromised by the electromagnetic pulse. Second wave of optical decoys deploy, Alden ordered. The Eclipse released another cluster of devices, these projecting multiple false sensor images of the human ship, further confusing the recovering Hizora vessels. On his partially functioning bridge, Serkath watched in growing horror as his command fell apart around him. 2 of his ships were now drifting, their propulsion systems offline. Another was firing wildly at sensor ghosts, wasting precious energy. This is impossible, he snarled. 1 human ship cannot defeat us. His remaining functional vessel limped alongside, attempting to provide support, but the coordinated attack they had planned had dissolved into chaos. Captain, Zara reported on the Eclipse, 2 Hizora vessels are disabled. A third is still operational, but appears to be experiencing targeting system malfunctions. Alden nodded. Focus fire on the lead ship's propulsion. Let's make sure they can't pursue when we're done. The Eclipse swung around, unleashing a barrage of precisely targeted fire at the lead Hizora vessel's engines. The ship shuddered under the impact, its weakened shields finally collapsing. Within minutes, the skirmish was over. 4 Hizora vessels drifted in space, disabled but intact. The 5th had managed to maintain minimal functionality, but was in no condition to fight. Serkath stared at the tactical display in disbelief. His patrol group, 5 ships that should have easily overwhelmed a single human vessel, had been defeated. As he watched, the Eclipse moved away, apparently satisfied with having neutralized the threat without completely destroying the Hizora ships. Send a distress signal to the main fleet, Serkath ordered, his voice hoarse with rage and humiliation. Tell Admiral Ruvoth what has happened here. His second-in-command hesitated. Sir, if we alert the main fleet to our failure. They must be warned, Serkath interrupted. This human ship is not what we expected, and there may be more like it. On the Eclipse, Alden allowed himself a small moment of satisfaction as they moved away from the disabled Hazora vessels. "Good work, everyone," he said. "But this is just the beginning. Those ships were only a scouting party. Their main fleet will be coming, and now they know we're here. Should we retreat to Alliance space?" Rivera asked. "We've completed our reconnaissance mission." Alden shook his head. "No, the Hazora are planning something big, something that could threaten the entire Alliance. If we run now, we lose our chance to discover what it is." "Sir," Zara interjected, "with respect, we just revealed our position to the enemy. The next force they send won't underestimate us." "I'm counting on it," Alden replied with a grim smile. "Artemis, what's your assessment?" The AI's calm voice filled the bridge once more. "Based on established Hazora battle doctrine, they will likely deploy a significant portion of their main fleet to this location. If we can disable or delay that fleet, it could provide the Alliance with critical time to prepare defenses." Murmurs of concern spread through the bridge crew. What Alden was proposing wasn't just risky, it bordered on suicidal. "We can't take on a Hazora battle fleet," Rivera objected. "Not even with our countermeasures." "We don't need to defeat them," Alden countered. "We just need to make them reconsider their plans. If we can damage their main fleet, even just temporarily, we might force them to negotiate rather than risk full-scale war." The bridge fell silent as the implications of his words sank in. There were 15 humans on a single ship, facing an empire that spanned dozens of star systems. "It's a long shot," Zara finally said. "It's our only shot," Alden replied. "If the Hazora launch a surprise attack on the Alliance, millions will die. We're in position to stop that from happening." He looked around the bridge, meeting the eyes of each crew member. "I know what I'm asking. If anyone objects, speak now." No one did. "Very well," Alden said firmly. "Zara, work with Artemis to prepare new countermeasures. Lieutenant Costa, I want our remaining weapons optimized for precision strikes against Hazora command ships. We're going to need every advantage we can get." As the crew set to work, Alden returned to the viewport, gazing out at the stars. They had won the first skirmish, but the real battle was yet to come. "They'll be back," he murmured, "and they'll be angry." Admiral Ruvoth stood on the command deck of the Hazora dreadnought Indomitable, his imposing figure casting a shadow across the tactical display. The news of Serkath's defeat had reached him minutes earlier, and his rage was palpable. "One ship," he growled, his voice carrying across the silent bridge. "One human ship disabled 5 of our vessels." Beside him, Major Urias studied the preliminary report with a furrowed brow. Unlike most Hazora officers, who relied exclusively on the superiority of their technology and numbers, Urias had always advocated for a more nuanced approach to warfare. "The human vessel employed unconventional tactics," she observed. "Their electronic countermeasures were unexpected." Ruvoth turned his glare toward her. "Are you defending this humiliation, Major?" "Not defending, Admiral. Analyzing." She met his gaze steadily. "If one human ship can achieve this result, perhaps we should reassess our understanding of their capabilities before committing our main force." "Reassess?" Ruvoth's facial tentacles quivered with indignation. "The Hazora do not reassess. We overwhelm. We conquer." This human vessel caught Serkath by surprise, a mistake that will not be repeated. He turned to his fleet commanders. "Prepare Battle Group Epsilon for immediate deployment. I will personally oversee the destruction of this human interloper." Urias hesitated, then spoke again. "Admiral, may I suggest a more measured approach? If the humans have developed new electronic warfare capabilities—" "Enough," Ruvoth cut her off. "Your caution borders on cowardice, Major. Our battle group carries 100 times the firepower of Serkath's patrol. No amount of electronic trickery will save them." Urias fell silent, but her expression remained troubled. As a military strategist, she recognized the danger of underestimating an opponent, even one that appeared significantly outmatched. On the Eclipse, preparations continued at a frantic pace. Zara and the engineering team worked tirelessly to enhance their electronic warfare capabilities, while Artemis ran continuous simulations to optimize their strategy. The key will be disrupting their neural network, Zara explained to Alden as they reviewed their plans. The Hizora rely on their hive mind connections for coordination. If we can break those connections, their numerical advantage becomes less significant. Alden nodded. Can we amplify the effect of our EMP devices? We're trying, but there are limits to our power reserves, Zara replied. Artemis has suggested a different approach. Rather than trying to disable all their ships simultaneously, we focus on creating maximum confusion within their fleet. Psychological warfare, Alden mused. Exactly. The Hizora are used to perfect communication and coordination. Take that away, and their entire battle doctrine falls apart. Artemis's voice joined the conversation. Captain, I have completed my analysis. The probability of successfully disrupting a Hizora battle group remains low, approximately 23.7%. However, if our objective is to force a diplomatic solution rather than achieve military victory, our chances improve significantly. How so? Alden asked. By demonstrating that engaging with humanity will be costly, regardless of their superior numbers. The Hizora Empire has historically avoided prolonged conflicts that drain resources without clear gain. Before Alden could respond, an alert sounded from the tactical station. Captain, Lieutenant Costa called out. Multiple warp signatures detected. Hizora vessels, at least 20. Alden's expression hardened. They didn't waste any time. Battle stations, everyone. This is what we've been preparing for. As the crew moved to their positions, Zara caught Alden's arm. Are you sure about this, Captain? We could still withdraw, try to reach Alliance base before they intercept us. Alden shook his head. Too late for that now. Besides, this was always the plan. Make them commit their forces, then show them the cost of underestimating humanity. The Hizora battle group emerged from warp space in perfect formation, a disciplined array of warships centered around Admiral Ruvoth's massive dreadnought. Target acquired, announced the Hizora weapons officer. Human vessel is attempting to conceal itself behind the third moon of the gas giant. Ruvoth smiled coldly. Predictable. All vessels, advance and encircle. Leave them nowhere to hide. The Hizora fleet moved forward with practiced precision, their formations shifting to cut off any potential escape routes for the Eclipse. On the smaller human vessel, Alden watched the approaching armada with outward calm, though his heart pounded in his chest. They're deploying according to standard Hizora encirclement doctrine, Artemis reported. Probability suggests they will attempt to trap us against the moon's gravity well before opening fire. Then let's not be where they expect us, Alden replied. Helm, prepare for emergency burn on my mark. Artemis, deploy all decoys simultaneously. The Hizora fleet continued its advance, weapons charged and ready. On the Indomitable, Admiral Ruvoth watched with satisfaction as his ships moved into position. The humans cower behind natural cover, he remarked to Yuria. So much for their vaunted tactical brilliance. Yuria said nothing, her attention fixed on the tactical display. Something didn't feel right. The human ship was making no attempt to evade or counter their approach. Sir, she finally said, this seems to... Her words were cut short as alarms suddenly blared throughout the Hizora fleet. Multiple sensor contacts appeared where there had been only one before. A dozen Eclipse signatures scattered across their tactical displays. Decoys, Yuria realized immediately. They're using advanced holographic projections. But Ruvoth was already barking orders. Ignore the false signatures. Concentrate fire on the original position. The Hizora ships opened fire, their energy weapons converging on the moon's shadow where the Eclipse had been hiding, only to find nothing there. The real Eclipse had already executed a high-energy burn, shooting through a gap in the Hizora formation while the fleet was distracted by the decoys. And then the electromagnetic pulse devices activated. Unlike the limited EMPs used against Serkath's patrol, these were strategically placed to create a ripple effect through the Hizora neural network. As the first ships were hit, their neural communications crashed, and in the resulting confusion, the coordinated mind link between vessels began to collapse. On the Indomitable, Ruvoth staggered as the neural feedback hit him. The sudden silence in his mind, the absence of the fleet's collective consciousness, was jarring and disorienting. "What is happening?" he demanded, clutching his head in pain. Uria, who had always maintained a certain independence from the hive mind network, recovered more quickly. "They've disrupted our neural communications. Fleet coordination is collapsing." Outside, chaos was unfolding. Without the unifying neural link, Hizora ships were reverting to individual command structures, many for the first time in years. Some captains, panicking, opened fire at perceived threats, only to hit Allied vessels. Others froze, waiting for orders that couldn't reach them. The Eclipse, meanwhile, darted between the larger ships, firing precise shots at weapon systems and engines, then vanishing again amid the confusion. "This is impossible," Ruvoth roared, watching his carefully orchestrated battle plan disintegrate around him. "One ship cannot defeat a battle group." "They're not trying to defeat us," Uria realized, studying the pattern of the Eclipse's attacks. "They're disabling us systematically, targeting weapons and propulsion, but avoiding critical life support systems. They're showing restraint." Ruvoth didn't appear to hear her, focused as he was on regaining control of his scattered fleet. "All ships, fall back and regroup. Ignore the decoys. Target the actual weapons, fire." But his orders reached only the Indomitable's crew. The rest of the fleet remained in disarray, some ships now drifting powerless after direct hits to their engine cores. On the Eclipse, Alden watched the tactical display with grim satisfaction. "It's working. Their formation is breaking down." "Captain," Zara reported, "I'm detecting energy buildup in the Hizora flagship. They appear to be preparing to fire their main cannon." Alden frowned. "Can they target us accurately without their neural network?" "Unlikely, but that weapon's area of effect is significant. They don't need precision to hit us if we're anywhere in the vicinity." For a moment, Alden considered his options. The Indomitable's main cannon could vaporize the Eclipse instantly if it scored a direct hit. Even a near miss would cripple them. Artemis analysis? The Hizora Dreadnought's main weapon requires approximately 47 seconds to reach full charge, the AI replied. During this charging sequence, their defensive systems are temporarily at reduced capacity to channel power to the weapon. "So they're vulnerable right now," Alden concluded. "Correct, Captain. There is a 78.4% probability that a concentrated attack on their main weapon housing could trigger a feedback loop in their power systems." Alden nodded decisively. "Helm, plot an attack vector. All weapons, prepare to concentrate fire on the Dreadnought's main cannon." The Eclipse swung around, accelerating directly toward the massive Hizora flagship, a seemingly suicidal charge against a vessel hundreds of times its size. On the Indomitable, Uria spotted the approaching human ship and felt a chill of admiration mixed with dread. "Admiral, the human vessel is targeting our main cannon during the charging sequence." Ruvoth's eyes widened in shock. "Divert power to forward shields. Abort the firing sequence." But it was too late. The Eclipse unleashed everything it had. Every torpedo, every energy weapon, directly at the exposed weapon housing of the Hizora Dreadnought. The concentrated barrage overwhelmed the temporarily weakened shields, striking the partially charged cannon. The resulting explosion ripped through the front section of the Indomitable, sending shockwaves throughout the massive vessel. Backup systems engaged immediately, preventing a catastrophic chain reaction, but the damage was done. The flagship's primary weapon was destroyed, and multiple decks were exposed to space. For a moment, both sides held their positions, the damaged Hizora Dreadnought and the exhausted human vessel facing each other across the void. On the Eclipse's bridge, warning lights flashed as systems reported critical power levels and weapons depletion. "Captain," Rivera reported grimly, "we've expended nearly all our offensive capabilities. We have minimal shields remaining, and our engines are running hot." Alden nodded, his expression solemn. "Open a communication channel to the Hizora flagship." Zara looked up in surprise. "Sir, we've made our point. Now let's see if they're willing to listen." After a moment's hesitation, Zara nodded. Channel open, Captain. Alden straightened in his chair. This is Captain Michael Alden of the Human Alliance vessel Eclipse. I request communication with the Hizora Command. There was a long pause before a response came. Not in audio form, as humans preferred, but as a direct neural transmission that their systems converted to visual data. The image of Admiral Ruvoth appeared on their main screen, his face contorted with a mixture of rage and disbelief. Human, he snarled, you have attacked vessels of the Hizora Empire. This act of aggression will not stand unpunished. Alden met the Admiral's gaze steadily. Your vessels entered Alliance space and fired first, Admiral. We defended ourselves. Defended? Ruvoth's tentacles writhed with anger. Your single ship has disabled half my battle group. This was not defense, this was a demonstration, Alden interrupted calmly. A demonstration of what awaits if the Hizora Empire chooses war with humanity. A tense silence followed this declaration. On the indomitable, Yuria stepped forward, entering the transmission field. The human speaks truthfully, Admiral, she said, her voice measured. Their ship has the capability to return to its fleet. Instead, they opened communications. Ruvoth's glare shifted to her. You suggest we parley with these upstarts? I suggest we consider the implications of what we've witnessed today, Yuria replied. One human ship against 20 of ours. The outcome was unexpected. Before Ruvoth could respond, the transmission was interrupted by a violent explosion somewhere on the Eclipse. The human ship lurched visibly in space, and the communication feed wavered. What happened? Alden demanded as the bridge around him trembled. We've been hit, Costa reported, frantically checking his instruments. Port engine housing has suffered a direct impact. Source. It's one of the Hizora light cruisers, Captain. They broke formation and attacked during the communication. On the still open channel, Yuria's expression shifted to one of alarm. Admiral, Relentless has opened fire without authorization. I'm ordering them to stand down immediately. Damage report. Alden called out, gripping his chair as the ship shuddered around him. Port engines critically damaged, Rivera reported. We're venting atmosphere from Deck 7 through 9. Emergency bulkheads engaged. Zara looked up from her station, her face pale. Captain, we've lost contact with engineering. Chief Takeda and his team were in the affected section. Alden's jaw tightened, but he kept his focus. Medical teams to Deck 7. Seal off the breached sections. On the communication channel, they could see Yuria arguing fiercely with Ruvoth. Though they couldn't hear the exchange, the body language was clear. Yuria was advocating for restraint while Ruvoth seemed torn between continuing the attack and heeding her counsel. Finally, Ruvoth turned back to the communication field. Your vessel is crippled, human. You have fought admirably. But this demonstration, as you call it, is over. Alden straightened despite the pain of a cut above his eye, blood trickling down his face. Is it, Admiral? Because from where I stand, your fleet is in disarray, your flagship is damaged, and you still haven't destroyed one small human ship. How do you think a full-scale war between our peoples would end? Ruvoth's expression darkened, but Yuria spoke before he could. Captain Alden, this unauthorized attack was not sanctioned. I have ordered the offending vessel disabled. Indeed, as they watched, two Hizora ships moved to intercept the rogue cruiser, using tractor beams to force it into a holding position. The Hizora Empire is not accustomed to negotiation with other species. Yuria continued carefully. But perhaps in this instance, further hostilities would be counterproductive. Ruvoth's tentacles twitched with barely contained fury, but he did not contradict her. After a moment's tense silence, he spoke again. You will withdraw your vessel from this space immediately, he said, his tone making it clear this was not a request. We will allow you to retreat without further engagement. In the Althean corridor, Alden pressed. Will the Hizora Empire continue its military incursion into Alliance territory? Ruvoth's eyes narrowed. You press your advantage too far, human. Admiral, Yuria interjected, Perhaps a temporary cessation of operations in this sector would be prudent while we reassess our strategic approach. The Hizora admiral was silent for a long moment, clearly weighing his options. Finally, he gave a curt nod. The battle group will withdraw to Hizora space, he announced, though his tone made it clear this was a tactical retreat, not a surrender. But make no mistake, human, this encounter will not be forgotten. The High Command will be informed of everything that has transpired here, as will the Human Alliance. Alden replied evenly. Perhaps both our governments will recognize that war benefits neither of our peoples. The communication ended abruptly as Ruvoth cut the transmission. On the Eclipse's bridge, the tension remained palpable as they waited to see if the Hizora would honor the ceasefire. Slowly, the Hizora vessels began to pull back, moving into formation around their damaged flagship. One by one, they engaged their warp drives and disappeared from the area, leaving behind only the disabled ships that could not yet travel. As the last Hizora vessel vanished, the bridge crew of the Eclipse let out a collective breath. "They're actually withdrawing," Rivera said, sounding almost disbelieving. Alden nodded, finally allowing himself to slump slightly in his chair. "For now, Zara, what's the status of our long-range communications?" "Still operational, Captain. We can send a message to Alliance Command." "Do it. Tell them everything that's happened here." And he hesitated, then continued firmly. "Tell them that the Hizora might be open to diplomatic contact. We've shown them we're not to be trifled with. Now, let's show them we can be reasonable, too." As the crew set about their tasks, attending to the damaged ship and their injured comrades, Alden moved to the viewport once more. The stars looked different somehow, the vastness of space both more threatening and more full of possibility than before. They had survived against overwhelming odds. One ship against an empire. It wouldn't be the end of tensions between humans and the Hizora. Perhaps it was only the beginning, but they had changed something fundamental today. They had earned respect. "Artemis," he called softly. "Yes, Captain," the AI responded. "Recalculate the probability of peaceful resolution between humanity and the Hizora Empire based on today's events." There was a brief pause before Artemis replied. Previous probability was 12.3%. Updated probability, based on current data, 37.9%. "A significant improvement, Captain." Alden smiled faintly, despite the pain and exhaustion. "Not bad. For a day's work." Major Yuria stood before the Hizora High Command, her posture perfect but her mind racing. The chamber was imposing by design. The 9 members of the High Command seated on elevated platforms, looking down at those who came before them. Admiral Ruvoth stood to one side, his expression carefully neutral. "You advocate for caution against these humans," said High Commander Vizoth, his voice echoing in the vast chamber. "Yet your report indicates they field only a fraction of our military strength." "Numbers do not tell the full story, High Commander," Yuria replied steadily. "The human vessel Eclipse demonstrated tactical innovation that caught us unprepared. Their approach to warfare differs fundamentally from our own." "They are vermin," growled another commander. "One fortunate engagement does not change the balance of power." "With respect," Yuria countered, "it was not fortune. Their captain deliberately targeted vulnerabilities in our fleet coordination. They studied us, understood us, and exploited our weaknesses. And most importantly, they showed restraint. This caused a stir among the High Command. Restraint was not a concept highly valued in Hizora military doctrine. "Explain," demanded Vizoth. "The human vessel disabled our ships, but avoided destroying them when possible. Their attacks focused on weapons and propulsion systems, deliberately sparing life support and crew quarters. Even when they had a clear shot at the Indomitable's core, they targeted only the main cannon." Ruvoth shifted uncomfortably, but remained silent. "And what conclusion do you draw from this?" "Restraint?" asked Vizoth, his tone making it clear he considered this a weakness. Yuria straightened. "That the humans may be open to coexistence rather than conflict. They demonstrated their ability to harm us, then immediately offered to communicate. This suggests a culture that values diplomacy alongside military strength. The chamber fell silent as the High Command considered her words. Finally, Vizoth spoke again. Admiral Ruvoth, do you share Major Uria's assessment? Ruvoth stepped forward, clearly choosing his words carefully. I believe the humans are more formidable than our intelligence suggested. Whether they truly desire peace or merely seek to delay conflict until it favors them remains unclear. However, he hesitated, then continued reluctantly. I cannot deny that they fought with unexpected effectiveness and discipline. Vizoth nodded slowly. The expansion into the Althean corridor will be suspended temporarily. We will reassess our approach to human territory and gather more intelligence on their capabilities. He fixed his gaze on Uria. Major, you will lead this reassessment. Your unconventional thinking seems well suited to understanding these humans. Uria bowed deeply, surprised but pleased by the assignment. I will serve the Empire with all my abilities, High Commander. As the session concluded and the officers filed out of the chamber, Ruvoth fell into step beside her. You should not have contradicted me before the High Command, he said, his voice low. I spoke the truth as I observed it, Admiral, she replied calmly. The human surprised us. Ignoring that fact would only lead to further miscalculations. Ruvoth was silent for several steps before speaking again. This human captain, Alden. He is not what I expected. Nor I, Uria admitted. Perhaps that is the lesson we should take from this encounter. The humans are not what we expected, and underestimating them clearly comes at a high cost. The Eclipse limped back toward Alliance space, its damaged engines operating at minimal capacity. The repair crews had worked miracles keeping the ship functioning after the battle, but it would need extensive overhaul once they reached a proper space dock. In his quarters, Alden reviewed the casualty reports with a heavy heart. 3 crew members lost in the engine explosion, including Chief Engineer Takeda, a man who had served with Alden for over 5 years. 7 others injured, 2 critically, a high price for their victory, if it could even be called that. A chime at his door interrupted his thoughts. Enter, he called. Zara stepped into the room, looking as exhausted as he felt. Captain, our message reached Alliance Command. They're sending a rescue vessel to meet us at the border. They also want a full debriefing once we're back. Alden nodded. I expected as much. Did they say anything else? Yes. A small smile touched Zara's lips. The Admiral called our actions unprecedented and possibly reckless, but undeniably effective. I think that's as close to a compliment as we're going to get. Alden let out a soft chuckle that quickly faded. And the crew? Morning, Zara replied simply, but proud of what we accomplished. Takeda and the others. They knew the risks. That doesn't make it easier. No, she agreed, it doesn't. She hesitated, then sat in the chair across from him. What do you think will happen now? With the Hizora, I mean. Alden leaned back, considering the question. Hard to say. They're not used to setbacks. Their entire culture is built around the idea of inevitable expansion. The notion that their way is the only way forward. But we showed them another perspective. We showed them that their assumptions about humanity were wrong. Alden corrected. Whether that leads to peace or simply a more cautious approach to war remains to be seen. Zara was silent for a moment. That female officer on their flagship, she seemed different from the others. Major Uria, Alden recalled. Yes, I noticed that too. She advocated for restraint, even when her admiral was ready to continue fighting. Could there be others like her in their hierarchy? Those who might prefer cooperation to conquest? There might be, and if there are, our encounter today may have strengthened their position. Alden stood, moving to the small viewport in his quarters. The stars streaked by as the damaged Eclipse continued its slow journey home. You know, he said quietly, Artemis calculated our chances of survival at less than 25% before the battle. I'm glad you didn't share that particular statistic with the crew, Zara replied with a wry smile. The odds are often against us, Alden continued. Humanity has always been outgunned, outnumbered, but we persist because we adapt. We find unexpected solutions. He turned back to face her. The Hizora thought they were targeting alone vulnerable human ship. They expected an easy victory. What they got instead was a lesson in humility. And perhaps a chance for a different future, Zara added. Perhaps. Alden's expression remained guarded. But we should prepare for either possibility. The ship's intercom interrupted them. "Captain to the bridge," came Rivera's voice. "We're receiving a transmission on an unusual frequency." Alden and Zara exchanged puzzled glances before heading to the bridge. When they arrived, Rivera looked up from his console with a confused expression. "It's being broadcast on an old emergency channel," he explained, "but it's definitely directed at us." "Source?" Alden asked, settling into his command chair. "Unknown. It's not using any standard identification protocols." Alden considered for a moment. Could be a trap, or it could be someone who doesn't want their communication traced. He made his decision. Put it through audio only. The bridge speakers crackled to life, and a voice spoke, clearly Hizora, but speaking in accented human standard. "Eclipse vessel. This communication is unauthorized. I am Uria." Alden straightened. "Major Uria, I didn't expect to hear from you so soon. This channel is secure, but temporary. I speak not as a representative of the Empire, but as one who seeks understanding." "I am listening," Alden responded cautiously. "Your tactics today, they revealed much about humans that our intelligence failed to grasp. Your restraint particularly was noteworthy." Alden glanced at Zara, who nodded encouragingly. "We don't seek to destroy unless necessary, Major. Humanity has learned through our own bloody history that war often costs more than it gains." A perspective not common among the Hizora, Uria acknowledged, but perhaps one worth considering. "I've been tasked with reassessing our approach to human territories." "That sounds promising. Do not misunderstand." Uria's tone hardened slightly. "The Empire will not abandon its expansion. But the High Command now recognizes that conflict with humanity may require reconsideration." "You have earned a moment of pause, Captain Alden. What follows will depend on both our peoples." "A moment of pause is all we need," Alden replied. "Enough time for proper diplomatic channels to open." "Perhaps." There was a hesitation before Uria continued. "Your ship, your crew, they fought with both skill and principle. This is respected, even among those who would still see you as enemies." "And you, Major? Do you see us as enemies?" The silence stretched for several seconds. "I see you as worthy of study rather than dismissal. That is all I can offer at present." "It's a start," Alden acknowledged. "Indeed." Another pause. "I must end this transmission. But know that your actions today have created possibilities that did not exist before." With that, the communication terminated, leaving the bridge in thoughtful silence. "Well," Rivera finally said, "that was unexpected." "Was it?" Alden mused. "Or was it the natural consequence of showing an intelligent species that their assumptions about us were wrong?" Artemis's voice joined the conversation. "Captain, I have updated my probability calculations based on this new data. The likelihood of peaceful resolution with the Hizora Empire now stands at 42.3%. Still less than even odds," Rivera pointed out. "But trending in the right direction," Zara countered. Alden nodded slowly. "One ship, one encounter. It's a small thing against the backdrop of galactic politics. But sometimes that's all it takes to change the course of history. One moment where everything that seemed certain suddenly isn't." He gazed at the view screen, where the stars continued their eternal dance. The Hizora targeted a lone human ship and regretted it instantly. Now, let's see what they've learned from that mistake. As the Eclipse continued its journey home, carrying its battle scars and its hard-won victory, Alden allowed himself to hope that this encounter might prove to be more than just another skirmish in an endless conflict, that it might instead be the first step towards something new. A future where strength was measured not only in firepower, but in the wisdom to know when not to use it. The Human Alliance would hear their story. The Hizora Empire would reconsider their approach. And somewhere in that space between conflict and cooperation, a path forward might emerge. All because one ship had refused to be an easy target. In her private quarters aboard the Hizora, carrier unyielding, Major Uria contemplated the data crystal in her hand. It contained all the information gathered during their encounter with the human vessel Eclipse: sensor readings, communication logs, tactical analyses, official records that would inform the Empire's future strategy toward humanity. But what the crystal couldn't capture was the impression left by Captain Alden and his crew. Their resourcefulness, their adaptability, and most strikingly, their restraint. These were qualities the Hizora military doctrine largely ignored, focusing instead on overwhelming force and technological superiority. Perhaps, Yuria reflected, that was a dangerous oversight. A soft chime indicated an incoming communication. When she answered, the stern face of Admiral Ruvoth appeared on her screen. The High Command has reviewed our preliminary report, he informed her without preamble. They are displeased with the outcome, but intrigued by the tactical implications. And their decision regarding the Althean corridor? Operations will be suspended for now, Ruvoth confirmed, his facial tentacles twitching with barely concealed frustration. Your assessment approach has been approved. You will lead a specialized team to develop countermeasures against human electronic warfare capabilities. Yuria nodded, careful to keep her expression neutral. I will begin immediately. Ruvoth's eyes narrowed. You seem satisfied with this development, Major. I'm satisfied that we will be better prepared in future encounters, she replied diplomatically. Understanding one's adversary is essential to victory. Indeed, Ruvoth studied her for a moment longer. Just remember where your loyalties lie, Major. Admiration for an enemy's tactics must not become admiration for the enemy themselves. Of course, Admiral. My loyalty to the Empire is absolute. After Ruvoth ended the communication, Yuria returned to her contemplation of the data crystal. Her loyalty was indeed to the Empire. But perhaps the best way to serve the Empire was to help it evolve beyond its rigid doctrines and arrogant assumptions. The humans had proven themselves more formidable than anyone had anticipated. One ship, the Eclipse, had changed the course of an entire military campaign. It was an outcome no Hizora strategist would have predicted, and it demanded a response beyond simply building bigger weapons or deploying more ships. It required something the Hizora had rarely practiced: adaptation. As Yuria began drafting her research parameters, she included one question that wouldn't appear in any official report. What might the Hizora Empire and humanity accomplish together, rather than in opposition? It was a radical thought, perhaps even a dangerous one in the current political climate. But the encounter with the Eclipse had planted the seed of possibility in her mind, and she suspected she wasn't the only one now considering alternatives to the traditional path of conquest. Time would tell whether that seed would take root and grow. For now, it was enough that it had been planted at all, an unexpected consequence when aliens targeted a lone human ship and instantly regretted it.